So has anybody else out there ever done an entire video before you realized you didn't have it turned on? This is getting back into the habit of doing videos it's kind of funny. I'm making all the mistakes I made when I first started out. Anyway, it's Vlogmas. I have no idea what day of Vlogmas it is, but it's a good day, that's for sure. And let's see, today I went out to, got my glasses on, and I keep meaning to take them off because of the weird reflection from the light. Well, at least I have a light. Before I had problems doing videos at night because there's just no place in our house that's very well lit. Even in the daytime, it's just the way we live. And we're in the woods, so sunshine doesn't always make it to where we are. Anyway, today, ladies' luncheon. The ladies involved are all older than me, but we're allowed to call ourselves ladies. Once a month in the off season, those of us who live here full time get together for lunch. And today, we had a kind of a fancy lunch. We went to a golf course nearby. Here's the entrance to the restaurant part of it. Pretty, isn't it? Here's what it looks like when you go inside the front door. And here's the room that we had to ourselves. There's lots of rooms in this place for our luncheon. So in my fantasy life tonight, when I'm laying in bed and I'm dreaming, I'm going to dream that's my staircase and my dining room. I'm going to be the lady of the house in my dreams tonight. It was a lovely time. I think there was only 15 of us. That's kind of an average size group. We go up to 20 or so sometimes. And it was enjoyable. Spend time with, in the wintertime here, we're such a summertime community. We're all out and about, whether we're on our porches or going for walks or in our golf carts. Of course, there's the golf carts. In the wintertime, we're more in our homes and not out and about the same way. I can go walking in the wintertime, even now, before it really is winter, and maybe run into just one or two people the whole time I'm out. So it's nice to have these opportunities to get together with the girls. Well, strike one, meaning good for Annie today. First thing is I'd gone online to look at their menu ahead of time. And I had decided what I was going to get. Figured out the carbs on it. I was going to have baked oysters as an appetizer. That was a splurge, I have to admit. Oh, I love oysters. And then I was going to have the steak Cobb salad that I told you about. And just recently, on the Facebook group that I'm part of because of watching Jonathan's One Big Impact videos, plugging him yet again, we had a discussion about alcohol. With the season coming up where a lot of us, even maybe don't drink regularly, are now going to be in situations whether it's office parties or parties at school or family parties or whatever, girls' days out like I had today, there may be alcohol involved. Well, most diets that we would, like when I was on Weight Watchers, you could have, I think, it was 4 ounces of wine, but it was quite a few points. It wasn't worth having a glass of wine for what you had to cut out for the rest of the day. So someone had, and I happen to know a lot about Atkins and alcohol, only because I'm old enough that I remember back in the day when Atkins was called the drinking man's diet because there was alcohol and there was steak. That's a long time ago. Obviously, they worked hard to get rid of that reputation. But beer and wine, not really when you're low carbing. But hard liquor, my friends. Things like bourbon and rye and whiskey and gin and vodka. Anything you can make a mixed drink with, Most of them have no carbs. No carbs. So, we're there at lunch today, and the ladies decide they're going to get some cocktails to start their lunch off with. So it wasn't one of those times where I had to sit back going, oh, I'm low carbing, so I can't. I actually could. So I ordered myself a spiced Captain Morgan and Diet Coke. The spiced Captain Morgan, by the way, if you're low carbing, does have 0.4 of a carb for an ounce. The regular Captain Morgan has nothing. So I ordered the drink, and there's a woman sitting near me, and who I love dearly, by the way, in case she's watching this, so I'm not belittling you, hon. I just think I had my moment of victory, so I'm so happy with myself because I was showing my preparedness. She was quite positive, and who wouldn't be, that because of the concept of sugar in those kind of alcohols, that there would be carbs, and in fact, maybe a lot of carbs. Well, I was pretty aligned with the power of my conviction because I'd researched this so carefully and planned on having a few drinks over the holiday season because it was in keeping with low carbing. And she was trying to help me. We can all use all the help we can get, right? She's trying to help me and suggested maybe I was wrong because isn't there sugar in those things? Now, honestly, I don't know why there aren't any carbs in those kinds of things because I thought they were sugar too. So I'm going to research it just because I'm interested in it. So anyway, one of the other women at the table, one of the girls, flipped open her phone and Googled the carbs in rum. And I got to be right. And the reason I'm glad I got to be right is, I'm so intentionally going about low carbing and learning as I go, and I'm making stupid mistakes because I was able to tell this friend of mine about my stupid French onion soup mistake. That I'm getting better at having the right answers and doing the right thing. So I was pretty proud of myself for being right today, even at the expense of my friend having to be wrong. So it was a good lunch, and I stayed well within my carbs for the day. And I enjoyed my Cap'n and Coke. So I have a topic. Remember a day or two ago, the topic was, what book are you reading? This came out of a conversation I was having in a group I'm in online. And we were talking about what was our first job. Okay, if you were a gentleman, or a girl who did it, cutting grass couldn't count, and delivering papers couldn't count, because that was pretty common. And if you were a girl, and even if you were a guy who did it, babysitting didn't count, because so many of us did one or the other, or both, when we were growing up. So the topic in that discussion was, what was your first job? So I thought it'd be fun to, if any of you feel up to including it in your Vlogmas and making sure I'm linked to it so I know if you're doing Vlogmas, or if you want to reply in the comments. My first job. Backstory. I was 16. Well, bull tinkle. I say bull tinkle. My battery died. I always have a backup battery, so that's a good thing. Ernie, are you coming up, hon? So Ernie came out with me. I went in the living room, actually in the kitchen, to get my battery. And in the process, I got a bulldog. Come on. Yeah, up you go. Say hello first. Hello. Now, over here. Go to sleep. Start snoring. My little accompanist. So, the backstory. 15 years old. I was extremely shy and backward and only comfortable in my small little circle of geek friends. And that's why this is a strange first job. Some of you might not even know about this, but I was a fuller brush person. I went door to door selling brushes. Yeah, I did. I was the worst fuller brush salesperson that ever existed. I remember at the time you had to spend $150 to buy this suitcase that had all your brushes in it. By the way, the products were excellent. I still use some of the brushes. Excellent products. It was the saleswoman that was a problem. I remember my mom fronted me the money. I did so poorly that it took me the better part of a year to make back the $150 to give her back. I'd lug that suitcase door to door. And as I'd be walking up the driveways, we lived in an area that was just a housing development. You're going to have to get down because you're driving me bonkers. We lived in an area that was one housing development after another, not in this city, so in the suburbs. And as I would be pulling my little suitcase up each driveway, I would start getting hives. Because I was terrified to knock on the door and to have to talk to whomever was on the other side of the door. Yeah, not the best job for a socially awkward, actually terrified, socially terrified 15-year-old to have. It was a disaster. It was a walking, suitcase-pushing disaster. When I paid back my mom the money she'd fronted me, I stopped. I quit. That was the end of my career as a saleswoman. I've actually never been able to sell anything. Can't do it. At 16, only a year later, I started working full-time. I was in a high school program that put you into a program where you also worked. And I worked for a Mongo, at the time, largest chemical company in the world, and started my career out as a secretary then. So I was 16 years old, going to graduate the next year, working full-time in what became my career for the next 30 years, because I went from secretary to executive assistant, secretary to administrative assistant, to executive assistant, to, they started calling it all kinds of funky names, because women didn't want to be considered secretaries or admins. They gave them all these fancy names, but it was still, I think when I retired, I was called assistant to the vice president. It sounds pretty impressive, doesn't it? I was an administrative assistant. Good at what I did. So I didn't have any other, like some people have a whole string of part-time jobs, especially if they went to college or something. And I didn't. I had to support myself starting at 17. So that didn't happen. I didn't go through a string of them. I became a career person. Well, that's why I've been retired now for 5 years, because I started working so young. What was your first job that wasn't cutting grass or walking dogs or babysitting or delivering papers? What was your first job that wasn't that kind of typical kid kind of job? Although you could certainly have been a kid when you started, whatever job you're going to share. Your first job. It's just interesting to see if you can guess what somebody might have done or compare it to what they ended up doing. Later in life, it can really be kind of funny, because I certainly started out doing, you couldn't have picked something I was more poorly suited for than walking door to door and trying to sell you a hairbrush or a scrub brush. So for today, that's that. Until tomorrow.